All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks again for joining us for another webinar through the Western Fire Chiefs Association. This series, we're really excited to have on a couple of distinguished guests going to be talking about an issue really prime for the fire service. And it does involve technology. So I want to throw a bone out to our WFCA Tech U program that's really trying to bring education and solutions to all of you. We know that the tech ecosystem is crazy right now. What we want to bring you is solutions. We want to bring you answers, and we want to bring you education. And so I think today we're really excited because I think it's going to be a blend of all of it as we navigate through this next hour. Real quick, I want to introduce along with me on the screen to your left is Chief Nick Schuler. Currently serves as the Deputy Director of Communications for CAL FIRE. Very intimate knowledge about the topics we're going to talk about today. So Chief Schuler, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. And then to his left, our right, is Rob Brown, the current CEO of Intterra. So Rob, really excited to have you both on. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Let's kick it off this way, Rob. We'll talk just a little bit about Intterra, and we're not going to make this a sales pitch webinar. We're really going to talk about the topic, and that's where we're excited to do. But talk a little bit. You came in as the CEO of Intterra. I don't have the exact time frame, about a year ago, if I remember right. Memory serves.
Coming up on two.
Two. Okay, that just tells you the gray is real. Like it's real gray on this head and on this fake beard. So 2 years ago, I know you and I chatted originally. I was still at Boise Fire, and we chatted about Intterra and where are you going. And I immediately got a little bit excited about where Intterra was going and the vision you had for Intterra. So maybe just talk to our folks and the folks that are going to watch this recorded. Where's Intterra at? Where's your focus? And then we'll really get into what we're talking about today.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. So I think I'm on month 22 in the role. It took me about 6 months or so to kind of figure out where all the doors and the light switches were. And then, as you mentioned, kind of went out on a road trip to talk to our major customers. And at the time, Boise was a customer of Intterra's and kind of shared our roadmap about, as a 15-year-old tech company in small business, let's face it, our technology had grown a little bit stale and we needed to really refresh. And that was really what I first started to do, was go out and talk to our customers about what is it they needed and what do they need from Intterra. And what I really clearly heard was, hey, we need Intterra to innovate. We need good new technology. The customers certainly liked the common operating platform solutions that we put out. And there was also this significant need for, hey, how do I better communicate out to my community? And how do I engage with my community? And that really came to, our major reinvestment in the platform. And Intterra's put in multi-millions of dollars into redeveloping our platform. It's now branded under the Aware branding. So we have Aware Intel Hub, which is the re-envisioning of our command and control platform and our traditional common operating platform. More in the EOCs and the planners and the desktop, sitting on a large screen. And then we also have two new mobile applications, one that we're going to talk a lot about today with our Aware Community application, which in California is branded as Aware CA, but is intended to expand out nationally, branded by each state. That's our community engagement. And then finally, our Aware Ops application, which is our secure first responder mobile app. So innovation-wise, we're really moving towards a mobile-first environment. Everything has to work on a mobile phone first and a desktop second, rather than the way it used to be. And then I would say really just bringing all of the new technologies, capabilities into the platform. I think finally, Intterra was always known for our people, and that remains the same. We have a very, very strong professional services and consulting services group. And they continue to serve our customers each day. Appreciate everybody. Appreciate allowing us to be here today and talk about Aware CA and where we're going.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Rob. And just for our watchers and our future watchers, Rob and Chief Schuler, Nick, as we agreed to call Chief, are in the same room and they're using an owl. So we just saw you switch sides. So don't think that they're doing the Chinese fire drill or anything else crazy, getting out of a car and switching places. That's the technology at work. And Rob, I just appreciate, how you kind of frame that up, because you and I did have that conversation. I think for our watchers and listeners, it's really important to understand when you have any tech company, Intterra is not alone in this, that is in the space for 15 years. It is a real challenge to innovate. And sometimes it does take new leadership coming in to say, how do we reimagine what we're doing keeping what we've always done in the core of what we've done and then adding to that. And I think, Rob, that's exactly what you've done. We'll kind of hit on that today as we go through. So let's kick this off. You mentioned the Aware platform and this idea of reclaiming your voice. And certainly as a fire chief for 15 years, I knew there were times where the message was going out to our community, whether it was through other city channels or quite honestly the media, that wasn't representing what I wanted said, or our team wanted said, especially on large scale incidents that are very public facing, whether that's, the hangar collapse we had at the airport that was a pretty major disaster that shut down our airport. That's a big deal. And we want to make sure our voice is heard in that. Wildfire is no different. We just had one last week that scorched the foothills. And I think it's really important to talk about what is the community hearing and is it right? So Chief, I'm gonna hit to you first. You oversee communications for Cal Fire. When we say public safety agencies need to kind of reclaim their authoritative voice, what do we mean by that? And what does it mean to Cal Fire as you guys have navigated around this issue?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I think it's a great question. And for CAL FIRE, when an incident happens in the state, a lot of people just assume that CAL FIRE is managing all incidents, which
Right.
everybody listening understands that that's not necessarily true. But for us, we're constantly looking at how we can innovate, how we can continue to enhance the speed in which we provide authoritative information to the public. And we really took a look after the January 2025 fire siege in LA. And during that 3 week period, 75 million people come to our website in 3 weeks because they were seeing the pace and scale at which we could provide information. And it's not just updates about the fire, but it's also demographics that help in recovery, help the media understand who they're speaking to, the languages that were spoken, as well as also understanding that what does the media need to actually share that message. And some of that was as simple as providing 3D perspectives on fire. So, after that, we started looking at, as part of after action reviews, is how can we take this to the next level? When we went back and looked at our website and recognized, not shocking that about 85% of the people that visit our website are coming from a mobile application. We wanted to ensure that we could create a solution and partner with a vendor. At that time, we didn't know who it would be, to create something that wasn't just about CAL FIRE, but was about any agency providing authoritative information to the public, something that they know and they could take to the bank that came from first responders at scene.
Yeah, it makes sense. And certainly that Palisades Eaton fire was front story for everybody. So I can only imagine the inquiries you were getting, the website hits you were getting. I think we saw that all across the West. We've seen the same thing in Lahaina and Paradise, Thomas Tubbs. I mean, take your pick. Certainly in Colorado, they saw it in the Marshall Fire as well. And so how do we make sure that information is accurate? I think, Rob, from your perspective as the partner, the vendor partner in this, what has changed in the public information environment that makes this so urgent today from a solution standpoint?
I think it's just the way society has changed. I think back to, when I was growing up, and my parents always taught me, if I was in danger, look for a badge. And that's really
Yep.
where our branding around Trust the Badge came from, was, hey, if I'm in danger, I want to know where to go to be safe. I think a combination of many things, the media, social media, the way we interact and get our news, the way that we get information has changed. I think now, what most studies around social media tell us is that the first information that we see is what we believe and what grounds us. And then anything after that, we're questioning. If you're getting your information from social media, or you're getting it from a non-authoritative source, that may not be accurate. It may be, but it may not be. And so it was really about, hey, how do we give the public a tool that allows them to go to one place? If you're in distress, or your family or your property is in distress, trying to figure out what app to go to and where to go, you can't be doing that in the middle of an emergency. So we wanted to create a trusted place for all public safety agencies to participate and have that authoritative voice. So if the public is unaware and looking at information, they can know that that is 100% right, coming from the badge, and getting back to trusting the badge.
I love that. So trusting the badge, and I'm looking at Nick's badge as he's wearing it today. So Nick, maybe a follow-up to that. in the day and age of AI, which has now become a massive problem in the authoritative voice, because people are into the 2 minute sound bites. We know that. That's how they want to read their news, 2 minute sound bites. How do you see something like Aware really claiming back that space from AI? And I watched it here in our local fire. There's about 8,000 acres or so, threaten the community. And I watched all of the narration on social media that had nothing to do with anybody that was in command or knew what was going on. And a lot of this now is just generated by AI. We know that. How do you see this, Nick, for CAL FIRE as maintaining the distinguishment of here versus everything else people are seeing on social media? Because we know that's a challenge. How do you envision that?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is, like you said, right, the speed in which people are putting information out, and just because it doesn't always make it the authoritative source, right? And so
Yep.
for us, if the public recognizes us and trusts us, not just our agency, but fire service in general as the source, and if we can continue to provide micro bursts of information
Yep.
at a cadence that they are comfortable with, I think that is the important piece. What we saw, a significant increase in misinformation and disinformation
Mhm.
in the Palisades and the Eden and all of these other things. And what happens is people start believing everything they're reading. And so just because that's their perspective on what's happening there, that's not necessarily reality. And I think no different of when I was a battalion chief responding to a traffic accident, and the 911 RP said there's people trapped and it's over the side, and you get there and it's a non-injury. And
Right.
that's no different than in social media, right? People post what they believe or post what they hear. But what we want to assure people is, number one, they recognize that the information we're providing is validated, and they understand that top of mind is us getting the information to them. And that's something that we've taken very serious. And I think one of the things that's unique about this program is that, a lot of us in our day-to-day jobs are focused on the agencies we work for, and frankly writing for the brand of our own department.
Mhm.
And this is a unique application that we've said it's not about one agency, it's about all the agencies combined. Because if I'm a citizen, I don't care if it's Cal Fire, LA
Right.
City, San Diego, Sacramento, anybody. I just want to know that the information I'm getting is from the trusted source.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I'm going to pick on you again because one of the things you said that I really want our watchers and listeners to pay attention to, you said the term microbursts of information. And I think the fire service, we put out our initial press release. We maybe have a presser on site where we get all the team together and the chief and the incident commander and all that. And then we'll do a later press conference a day later. But there's a big gap in between all those points in time where this disinformation can arise in social media and people start believing it. So maybe, Nick, from a perspective of inside your comm center at CAL FIRE and working with all your local partners around you that you just mentioned, how do you approach tactically, operationally, those microbursts? How are you doing that? And what tools are you using to present that microburst of information?
Yeah, great question. For one, it had to be a shift of the mindset of, I spent 18 years on incident management teams, and
Hmm.
when thinking about constantly pushing out information that frankly uh, doesn't have to be approved by the IC was kind of a thought for all of us. All of us, it's like, whoa, that is a unique thing. But as
Yeah.
technology and advancements have occurred, whether it's through Intel aircraft flying over and providing updated acreage that is automated to our website and is automated to Aware. Things that we already know that are right from technology are important updates. Historically, you'd get the 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. updates that match, the 209. But there
Yep.
was a lot, as you mentioned, that happened in between. So for us, being able to provide a constant cadence of information on what's happening, updated evacuation areas, progression of the fire, things that make the homeowner or people in that area have a better situational awareness of what's happening is really important. And what I've really stressed to our folks is they don't need a press release. Outdated, press release for fire station grand openings, not for fires. And that's something that we've really embraced in our organization is quick, accurate, and authoritative.
And Mark,
Makes
if I can
sense.
add, I think too,
Yeah.
what we've been saying to our agencies that we're engaging with is, look, you don't have to have a giant PIO shop to be able to put out information. What the public really wants is a quick 2 or 3 sentence update. And that
Yep.
can now be done in the field on mobile. Take a quick picture, take a quick video if you want, or even just a couple, 2 or 3 sentences. Here's what's going on. And I think that the fire service is in the midst of shifting, whereas as Chief mentioned, it used to be a press release or a 12-hour update, as part of ICS. That can no longer be. It has to be quick information getting out.
Yep.
And the agencies need a way to get that information out. So the technology is now here to support that as well.
And I think that's really important, Rob. And this is where I was going with the question to Nick is, the old way of doing business was you have something major happen, all the crews start responding, the media starts calling. So you get together with your comms team, they put together a press release real quick, they send it to the chief, I approve it, goes to the city comms team for their approval and logos and all that stuff. And then, so now we got information out, and then there's this big gap where everybody is commenting on what they think is going on. So now you're just chasing your tail, backfilling rumors. Then you put together the in-person presser, you bring the mayor in, you bring the chief in, you do this big formal update on the press conference. There's so much missing pieces that I think the question was always, before you brought the platform, Rob, was how do we fill that gap technologically wise that can expedite information and tidbits of information out to the community, where our PIOs aren't building the narrative, they're grabbing the intel, and the intel is almost feeding the narrative, and we quickly push it out. And then also the secondary piece of this that we'll get into, Chief, on how do you culturalize that with the community, because that's another big piece. The community is going to go to you if they know they can trust you, not just to respond and put things out, put fires out, fix the plane crash, but the information coming out is trusted. And I think in today's politically charged world, that's getting harder and harder to do. Do they trust government is the question. We'll get to that in a little bit, but maybe Nick, going back to you, you hit on it earlier, and CAL FIRE certainly has the depth to be able to do some of these really cool things. Talk about, again, after Palisades Eaton, what drove you to say we need an app? We need something that we can use, field ready, mobile ready, that our incident command posts can easily engage with, that gets information out to the community. How did that narration go as you guys all got together?
Yeah, so afterwards, like any large incident, you have an after action review, and you look at the successes and the challenges and things that we could do better. And we started self-reflecting and went, 75 million people visiting your website. Obviously, you are an authoritative source that people want to hear from. But how can we make that access better? And we all recognize that having to go to a website versus the information being pushed to you through an app is something important. And as part of that process, we analyzed heat signatures on our website to determine what were the priority of things that people were looking at, what they were clicking on, did a little bit of revamping on our website, and then also talked with the governor's office and the leadership of Chief Tyler, and wanting to continue to take our communications program and our ability to communicate to the public to the next level. So we got together with our IT and our technology program and looked at some options, started having initial conversations with a variety of tech companies, and realized that we needed to put this out to a formal RFP and see what agencies would bring back. When the decision was finally made that Intterra was going to be our selected vendor, we quickly went to work and looked at all of the enhancements that already occur and all the automation that already occurs to our website, and asked them to take it to the next level in a mobile platform, bring us new ideas that we may not have considered, but also recognize that this was something that, yes, it was a venture that CAL FIRE started, but to be successful, this needs to be a fire service solution, and to be good partners. We talk a lot about it. We talk a lot about it at meetings and conferences of working together, but to really pull the patch off and say, we're actually going to do this and implement it. And what we've been able to accomplish just in the 6 months, I've said at many meetings, if you try to get as many agencies that want to join AWARE to just pick a common wildland fire glove or a structure glove, that would be a 5-year project, right? And so to see the success we've already had even before launch, I think is a credit to the direction that agencies want to go to.
Yeah, I love it. And we could spend a whole nother hour podcasting, webinaring, We are all in the same mission space, yet all seem to think we have our own way of doing it. That's a whole nother conversation, but you're spot on. So we do need solutions that can truly cross state, federal, local entities where we all can come together and find commonality. And I think, I said this to Chief Tyler at a meeting that we were at. We were talking about the synergy of collaboration in today's fire service, and I really do feel like that is a shift in the wind compared to what it was for the 31 years of my career, where it was built on isolation and all that. So a little bit of sidetrack there, but I appreciate the comment. Nick, as CAL FIRE was looking to build those RFP requirements, what were the non-negotiables for you? Regardless of which company got selected, what were some of those, just these are non-negotiables, non-starters, we have to maintain ownership, et cetera? Maybe talk about that.
Yeah, number one, it had to be something that was free to the public, right? For us, it couldn't be something that would had paywalls and things, especially as a government entity. We got to provide the information free, right? And the other thing is it couldn't blend non-authoritative and authoritative information, right? So we had to know that the information that was going to be pushed to the public was coming only from an authoritative source. And then all the other requirements, ADA compliance, security compliance, and a variety of those. But, our number one thing was ensuring that if we told the governor's office, our elected official body, the public, this is where the information is, we know where that information was coming, we know who was putting it out, and we know why they were putting it out. And those were, of many of the requirements, those were just a few.
Yeah.
And Mark, if I may, I think if I can add on to that, we added some additional requirements to that, and certainly CAL FIRE presented them to us. We built the solution. It's normally when a small technology company builds new technology, you have a ramping period where you can grow out your infrastructure, you can grow out your technology over time. We recognize that that was not the case with this. So we built the platform. I think our contractual requirement was 4 million simultaneous users. We built it to support 10 million, knowing the amount of scale. I think the other thing that was really important from Intterra's view and CAL FIRE's view was that each agency owned their space in Awares, and that each agency manages their data in the way that they want. Chief mentioned, there's no fees, there's no advertising, we're not selling the data. It's not Intterra's data, it's the agency's data, and each agency owns their piece, and each agency manages and controls their piece. And, very similar to the ICS process, we built Intterra to support the same communications that are outlined within ICS. We built the plumbing, the agencies are responsible for what information goes in and how it goes out to the public.
Yeah, I love it. And then, Rob, I'm going to follow up with you on something that Nick said. As they were going through this process and picked Intterra, which was a great pick, right? Intterra is a partner of the fire service. They're certainly a partner of the Western Fire Chiefs Association. But we talked about, Nick, you mentioned something, taking the patch off. And to me, that signals that we're now in a partnership with technology. It's not a contractual or transactional process. It's actually a partnership that we're going to build this right thing together. So, Rob, from your perspective, from the vendor side, knowing that has not always been the case in the technology ecosystem, how did you approach that with Intterra saying, okay, we are going to partner and work together to build a great tool for the community?
What we looked at was how do we build this to the size and scale that it has to be? And then how do we pay for that? There's always a cost to deliver. And I think one of the things that we're battling right now is non-authoritative information sources have many different ways to generate revenue off of the fire service data. We do not. We only have one way. If the agencies own their data, then the only way we can support that is by charging a license to the agencies. So we also had to step back and go, hey, this multi-million-dollar project has to be scaled out across the entire state. No one agency is going to fund it. Even a large agency like CAL FIRE can't fund, for everyone. So what we decided from a technology perspective was that we were going to charge the minimal amount that we could per agency to support all agencies getting on board. So this should be in no way a budget buster in any way for an agency, regardless of their size. whether they're a 50-person agency or a 10,000-person agency. And by charging a small license fee, we can then allow all agencies to participate, and Intterra gets the revenue streams that we need to support continued innovation. I think back to the original question you asked, Mark, me of innovation. Innovation also takes money. And so, in order to keep building out all of the new things that everyone wants, the revenue stream has to support that. And so our way of doing that, again, was allowing every agency to participate regardless of their size and making sure that there was a place. One of the things that I have been super impressed with was, and just as a proof point of what he says when he says that taking off the patch on the shoulder, we have had agencies 5-person to 5,000-person asked to participate, and they all come in the same way and they all get treated the same way. We've not been asked to differentiate one or the other or support one more than the other. It has been support every agency the exact same way. And I think that's really, really cool at CAL FIRE to do that and fund the initial and then allow the agencies to own and take their piece.
Yeah, and I love that. And kudos to both of you, because you help frame up what the Western has been fighting for a while. And that is ensuring that we not only have the haves, but the have-nots. And certainly as we're doing our Wildfire Tech Summit work, I had a congressional member, I'll keep his name out of it, but the folks that are tracking will probably know. He's been engaged in this, and he said, what is the ultimate vision? And for me, one of the ultimate visions, and I know it is for Chief Fennessy and others, how do we collaborate federal, state, and local data and information better together in the future? Right now, it's been siloed for so many years. And yet, again, we're all doing the same mission. We're all going out and fighting that wildfire in whatever tactics and strategies we choose to use. But how do we bring everybody together? And I think what you all just explained and the process you went through is proof to our watchers and listeners that you can all come together. This doesn't have to be the state agency versus the locals. It can be done in a collaborative approach where everybody is working into the same platform and off the same platform. So kudos to you for pushing that. You're proving it works, which, for the naysayers that want to go back to the old school way of doing business, I think we're proving that we can do it differently and do it better. So kudos again to you guys for setting that stage. Rob, let's talk about Aware a little bit more detail. We've kind of touched on it, but I really wanted to focus the first part of this on what was the problem we were trying to solve. I think too often we find technology looking for a problem as opposed to a problem looking for a solution. So clearly, Chief, thanks, Nick. You helped us identify what the problem was. So now let's talk about Aware and introduce Aware a little bit, Rob. So tell me about Aware. You've talked a little bit about Trust the Badge, but let's go a little deeper into what Aware offers local communities and state agencies individually and in collaboration with one another.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So Aware is an iOS or Android downloadable app that will be available soon in the next couple of weeks in the App Store, where community members can download on their phone type the application. In California, it's branded as Aware CA. The Aware platform allows any public safety agency to participate throughout the state of California, and also other organizations that are connected to the public safety mission. So, for example, utilities and other providers that would support public safety. Each agency can join Aware. Their badge in their name or their logo in their name served in the space, and they own their space for publishing out information. And an agency can allow us to, for example, connect into their CAD or their 911 system and show calls for service all the way through to the weekend parade. And then, of course, any major event, major disaster going on that they wish to communicate into the public. So it's about giving the community the direct pipeline to information from the first responders. Hey, I just saw this ambulance screaming down my street. What's going on? I can look in Aware. I can see that there's a medical call for service. We're obviously not giving out medical information or the exact address or any of those things. The system automatically masks all of that. But the community member can see that there's a medical event nearby that's being responded to, and it's not a big deal. They move on with their day. When there's the weekend parade, we can see, Main Street is closed from noon to 4 p.m. and here's the workarounds and here's the areas to go to. And again, a way to funnel out that information. Then when there's a major disaster going on, the information flow out from that. Here's the evacs, here's the routes to go, here's the pet shelter, here's the personnel shelter, all of the information that public safety needs to get out. And giving that again in a single platform. So regardless of where you're at in the state, download the app, you have the information if your agency is participating. As of today, we have about 55% of the population of California. The agencies that serve that population are now on board with Aware and or will be soon after launch as we onboard all of those agencies. We hope to be, much higher than that and are engaged with conversations with the other 45% of the population we haven't covered yet to make sure that we do get that covered. So ultimately, though, it's about giving that community member that trusted place to go. I can log into one app. I can find the information that I need to contact my family and myself, and I have one authoritative voice. I don't need to wonder where this came from, and the reality is what's going on right now in social media platforms and other non-authoritative platforms is someone else is putting out that message that's not coming directly from the first. This solves that, and I know exactly where to go to get the information I need.
So let me follow up on that, Rob, a little bit with, I mentioned earlier about just the ecosystem of technology. It's a little bit wild and crazy. Dr. Lori Moore Merrill, our former U.S. fire administrator who we do some work with, she had a stat a few months back that kind of alarmed me. I think I felt it organically, but wasn't sure from the data perspective. Since 2022, 600 new tech companies have entered into the wildfire tech space. That's a lot. So as we think about that, what makes Aware different than any other alerting platform, et cetera? We know there's others doing great work on other areas, evacuations, et cetera. But what makes Aware different than maybe some of those other 600 tech companies that we heard about coming into the marketplace?
Yeah, and obviously there's some great new tech startups out there that are doing great work, and I think what really differentiates Aware from the other non-authoritative sources is that we are directly connecting into the fire service systems, the daily calls for service, the event planners. We're working with the utility companies about planned power outages. We're working with Cal Fire and all of the data that they have. We're working with our partners at Cal OES and Caltrans and Alert California and bringing all of this authoritative information into one common place. And I think that's really the differentiator is it's not just one set of information. We have hundreds of data sets that are coming into the platform and delivering out to the public.
Perfect.
Mark, if I could add one piece on that, I think some of the other things that the platform brings is some unique perspectives that aren't necessarily offered or not offered in the data sets or the layers, if you will, that this app is going to provide. And, the ability, aircraft are always an attention getter of the public, whether or not they're impacted by a fire or not, they're always interested in what's going on. So for us, one of the things was to actually be able to show the aircraft, in an environment, in a 3D environment that actually helps people understand how aircraft move in the stack, which direction they fly, the aircraft, all the agency aircraft is currently branded. So if an LA City helicopter flies by it, it's going to show the LA City branded information, the ability to go, oh, I'm interested to know, to be able to click on that aircraft and it actually follows, you can track that aircraft from the point it takes off to a fire and back. And some of the ability to give people just a unique perspective on the complexities of managing large scale disasters in California. I think it gives them a different look. And, for us, the ability to get, as I've said, all of these agencies into a single platform where people don't have to determine, if I'm driving down the freeway, I don't know what jurisdictional boundaries. I just want to go to a single place where I know that somebody at scene there is updating this information and I can take it to the bank that it's correct.
Yeah, I love that, Nick. And I think progressive chiefs understand the public doesn't necessarily care which patch is showing up when a thing happens. What they want to know is it's being solved. And I think that again is that transition of today's leadership versus probably yesterday's, where it was all about my badge, my jurisdiction, my authority. I think chiefs today understand our job collectively, which is why I love this platform being engaged across the state of California, is to share this, but also respond collaboratively as well, because people just want their thing solved, flat out. Red, green, purple fire trucks, they'll argue that later. They really don't care in the moment. So I love what you just said there. And I think, the chiefs that are listening to this understand that. And this is a great tool, again, to bring collaboration together at a city level, a county level, a state level. So I really, again, appreciate that. Nick, from a CAL FIRE perspective, where do you see this going? You've talked a little bit about what it's going to be initially, right? It's some response information, it's helicopter aviation information. How do you see this as a tool to go beyond just the fire, but more natural disasters that CAL FIRE is going to be responsible to respond to, and local agencies? How do you see it as an all hazards platform beyond just wildfire that we've kind of spent some time talking about?
Yeah, for us, our agency responds to more than 600,000 calls a year, and a very small portion of those are wildland fires, roughly 10,000 a year.
Yeah.
So, for us, the first step was getting all of our wildland fires in there, which typically grab the most, and then, continue to build on, leverage the information, leverage that flow to eventually be able to continue to show other all hazard events, right? I mean, in California, whether it's an incident at the Oroville Dam or flooding in the Central Valley, people are still going to want that same information. So for us, the first step was making sure that, our information got in there for wildland fires, but, getting this published in August and out to the public is step one, right? There, we have an infinite opportunity to continue to enhance this. Also get feedback from the public, right? Like,
Yeah.
we want to hear from them on what they believe is working well, and probably more important is what's not working well and how we can continue to enhance that. And when you talk about partnerships, you referenced that before, and that's what we've experienced with Rob and his team, is that they too want to see this be successful. So for us, having our partner agencies from the smallest to the largest be able to come back with thoughts, ideas, and feedback, and continue to get that momentum from the working group of chief officers and communicators from across the state, that gives us the ability to continue with other enhancements, ones that we haven't thought of today, but we're excited about in the future.
Perfect.
Yeah, and Mark, if I can add in from the technology perspective, I mentioned all of the agencies that are coming on board with Aware at launch besides CAL FIRE. In most of those cases, those local agencies are bringing their CAD connection, and we're showing those calls for service. If you also draw back for a moment, what we can do with the fire service, the other truly game-changing thing that's happened, we are finally getting to a statewide single common platform showing response across the state by having all of those CADs connected into a common platform. What we can do with that data for the first response side is to enhance mutual aid, to enhance the response by being able to take the data across all the state. And in my view, in the fire service, the CAD is that center of truth of where are all my people and where are all my assets. The CAD gives us that connection, and having that all coming into the platform, I think we're only going to see those uses grow out as well from there.
Yeah, good. And Rob, a follow-up to that. When we talk about new technology for any of us in any organization, the RFP process is one thing. The purchase is actually the easiest part of the process, but the implementation is the hardest. And it's oftentimes where the fire service fails. We do not implement appropriately. And Nick, you mentioned it. By implementation, I'm not just talking about the first training exercise we do with our crews to say, here it is, community, here it is, and then we move on. I'm talking about ongoing training, follow-up after actions on the technology, et cetera, et cetera. So from an Intterra perspective with CAL FIRE and the local agencies in California, how is Intterra helping to ensure the right implementation and the ongoing training and follow-up needed to ensure the product is successful for CAL FIRE and for the communities?
Yeah, so maybe I'll take first swing, and then so I think the first is Intterra and CAL FIRE mutually agreed we were going to create a working group that involved multiple agencies throughout the state. So I think tomorrow we have about 50 plus participants within that working group coming together for an all-day session tomorrow. So we got feedback across all of or a large spectrum of the agencies across the state, from small to large, and brought that in. And what Intterra said is, hey, we don't want to be the police of this. the fire service is the ones who decide. So the working group is setting up the process and procedures and the ways that the agencies are going to use the tool. It's them creating the rule sets that Intterra then builds the technology to support, not us trying to dictate how the fire service should do their job. I would expect we'll have the same style working group with law enforcement and emergency management as we move into those areas as well, and they more of them join into the Aware platform. I think also, there's been just such a wild change in the technologies overall. I started my career in public safety about 30 years ago, trying to create that quote single pane of glass that has always been so hard to do. I think the technology in the last 5 years, AI and the tools that are available to us, finally allow that. So what we're doing today by bringing all of these agencies into a single application running on a phone, we just been do 15, 20 years ago. And now the technology is here to do that and support that. So I think, and that's really, I think, a key message is Intterra is here to support the technology. The working group and the agencies are here to set the rules by which how that gets used.
Yeah, and I think while governance is important and a variety of other business practices, if you will, is critical. The basis of our success is ICS, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it in the simplest terms, two agencies are responding to a single fire. They go into command, and the incident commanders or the battalion chiefs on scene make a decision on who's going to speak for both agencies, right? And really, before Aware and before technologies, that's the way it occurred, right? So using those same guiding principles, leveraging technology is something that we're using, and that's the basis of our success. And as we continue to enhance this app, my goal is to continue to find ways to be transparent to the public. And one of those is for CAL FIRE, we've established all the technology, purchased all the hardware that you'll be able to select and listen to that specific command frequency for that fire for the public. Not a scanner frequency that bleeds over between multiple frequencies that confuses people, but a single command frequency they can listen to fire. And why do we do that? Again, there's nothing to hide. We want people to understand the complexities and what we're dealing with, hear a rapidly expanding incident, or hopefully hear that a forward rate of spread's been stopped and that they can rest easy and enjoy their day. But my goal is this is not the finish line. This is the starting line.
Yeah, I love that. Nick, maybe a follow-up to that. How is CAL FIRE thinking about navigating transparency to the public? Because I think every fire chief faces this. We want to be more and more transparent with our public. But we also know there's security risks in doing that. There's domestic terrorism risks in doing that. How are you guys navigating that balance between transparency while also still protecting the critical tactical operations so that we don't have bad actors kind of showing up to our space, right? And we know that happens. How are you guys working through that?
Yeah, for us, I think that's a twofold answer. Number one, the technology, right? I referenced the Palisades and the 75 million people, but there was also 188,000 cyber attacks on our website in 3 weeks, none of which were successful, fortunately. And I bring that up because there is a stark recognition of the potential for bad actors to try to infiltrate our technology. And while I'm not the person to speak on that, I would say that our department is very robust and has worked closely with Rob and his team to ensure that that's being addressed on the technology side. I think on the operational side is that we're focused on providing command level updates, not necessarily tactical updates on where tactical frequency or where hose lays are placed. But what we want to do is not overwhelm people with information, but provide them with information that's going to help them make decisions about the safety of their family.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And maybe Rob, on the technology side, how is Intterra helping to ensure that your platform is secure enough that it can't be hacked and gotten into by bad actors? I mean, we all face this. The Western got hacked about a year and a half ago with the Daily Dispatch. It happens. What are you all doing at Intterra to ensure that this stays secure?
Yeah, I'll never say that we're never ever going to get hacked because
Yep.
I don't think that's a realistic view. I think we are certainly have all of the technology in place to create the most secure environment. Aware is housed in Microsoft Azure Commercial for the public facing side. And for the agency side, we're housed in Azure Government. So we're relying and working closely with Microsoft on the underlying network ports. We also have a number of vendors that are providing cybersecurity services on top and continual 24/7 monitoring and everything else you would imagine. I want to circle back though, Mark, because one of the things that as we talk about, the working group deciding and making a decision, when we first envisioned Aware, we actually envisioned having AVL running in the application and showing fire apparatus on the ground, where it was at, how was it responding. And the feedback was that was getting too tactical and giving out too much information that
Yep.
may put people at risk. So we've made the decision to not do that. And I think that's a great example where we as technologists thought, hey, this would be really, really cool. I can see a fire truck in 3D, driving down the road. And the working group said, no, that's a little too far. We may do that at some point, but we want to make sure, we have a good clean start and we're keeping our people safe. And I think that's a good point around that too, that we took back and said, hey, we have to make that change.
Yeah, I think that last piece is just important to planning section chiefs and resource ordering groups, knowing where the resources are, how long it's going to be to get there. But the public, yeah, I agree with you. Probably a little bit of too much information. Yeah, certainly. So, Rob, maybe a follow-up question on that, along the same lines what we've been talking about, and maybe Nick, you'll appreciate this as well. As fire service leaders, we're inundated almost daily from some company wanting us to see their thing, right? That's just the world that we live in. But what I'm intrigued by, and Rob, you and I have talked a lot about this, is how are certain companies working together? Right? Because I think that's where the fire service recognizes the synergy in the vendor community and appreciates it. So maybe within your platform and the work you're doing, how are you working with others in kind of this technology space to enhance your product?
Yeah, for us, it's really, really simple. We want to partner with anybody that is willing to partner and that has information or technology or data or whatever it is that can help us support our partners in the agencies and the public. So a great example of that is with Genesis. We've done a nationwide partnership now with Genesis, where we're connecting their evacuation data directly into Aware. So anywhere within the state of California, a Genesis customer can create an evacuation grid or select an evacuation grid, and that instantly shows up in Aware and then instantly notifies the public that may be subscribed into information around that. We're doing that partnership nationally with Genesis. We have partnerships with Alert California for the camera networks. We have, we're willing to talk to anyone. One of the things that I think is happening in the fire service as well around data is this recognition that, it's for first and foremost, from Intterra's perspective, it's always the agency's data. So we're also not going to share that data unless we have the agency's permission to do that.
Yep.
But we will certainly always entertain doing that. And for us, if an agency asks us to share their data with another vendor, we go through a very simple process to determine whether or not that involves a license or not. In many cases, it would not. And we would do that integration.
And Rob, you guys truly are a single pane of glass. And you've heard my rant in front of other chiefs and other groups. I engage vendors and they show me their tool and then they say, and we have a single pane of glass. Well, that single pane of glass is just for their product. You truly are the single pane of glass. I often joked as a chief, in my office, I could have probably 19 monitors on the wall that were all my different systems that told me what was going on in my fire department. And I always argued, I want one screen, one monitor. You offer that. So talk a little bit about that. You've already hit on it, but talk about how that data points come in from multiple sources to truly create your one-page situational awareness tool.
Yeah, and I think with Aware CA, that's obviously with a lens of going out to the public. So it's all of the information that needs to go out to the public. We also have our Intel Hub and Aware Ops, which is the similar single pane of glass, but a secure environment for internal information or information within the public safety. And yeah, I think one of the major technology investments investments that Intterra has made is we have built basically a Swiss Army knife that allows us to bring any data in and do that in a highly repeatable, common way. So I think, we've worked to solve the major technological gap in the public safety space, and that is, we have 10 different, as you mentioned in Boise, you probably had 10 different systems built 10 different ways, with 10 different technology stacks. How do you unify all of that? And ultimately what Intterra has built is that Swiss Army knife that allows us to connect into those 10 systems and bring that data into one view. And then obviously leveraging our strategic partners, Microsoft, Esri, Mapbox, some others that are providing other tools that we can use in that stack.
Yeah, so let me get to a couple questions. Henry popped a couple questions in here, so let me get to those. Nick, I'll start the first question with you. I happen to mention AI and how AI is now starting to promote bad information, misinformation, whether that's through bad actors or just people that want attention or whatever it is. What are you seeing within CAL FIRE in the state of California where AI has disrupted incidents or spread misinformation? Have you seen something specific that you guys are tracking there in the state of California?
Yeah, and a lot of that, maybe not necessarily AI, but misinformation and the disinformation I referenced before, and whether that's something as simple as people posting, a fire engine's parked on the side of the road and they said it must be out of fuel, and then we're constantly trying to, that starts to get legs that, oh my gosh, the state's out of fuel, and then we're addressing those. And some of those are misinformation, but there's also the disinformation where people are putting out information that's intentionally wrong to cause problems or to cause heartache. And I even reached out to a person on a fire this year, not even from our agency, but where they had posted a picture and the picture was AI and they hadn't recognized it was from a different agency. And the only reason I caught it is that the image showed multiple homes burning, and I knew there was only one structure that had burned on the incident. And they didn't even know because they look so realistic. So for us, we have to continue to provide the pace and scale of information, and then be cognizant, with our team of folks that are monitoring social media, that are monitoring comments, to engage respectfully and flag those things for us so we can get ahead of them. And some of that is simple as rumors start to increase about a certain topic, for us to be proactive to address that as those items come up. But there's the fire itself, and then there's the 85% other work that doesn't have anything to do with the fire, that's just addressing things like you just referenced.
Yeah, and I'm really glad
Mark,
you brought it. Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
I was just going to say, if I may, I think there's also, the folks that are out there that are, listening to radios that are out there, or that are, on the sidelines, looking in at an event. That's generally good information, but it's not authoritative or 100% accurate. And I think, as a fire chief, there's always that one person that gets on a walkie-talkie that amps up, the conversation, and that they're going to do that, and then how to calculate, in your response to that. Someone that doesn't know that and isn't aware of that is going to put out information that isn't necessarily, accurate or what the command needs to go out to the public. And I think, one of the questions that I get asked all the time is, how are you going to keep up with that? The answer is we're not. We're not looking to be the fastest. We're not looking to get a scoop on the fire. We're looking to deliver the authoritative information out to the public.
I think that's really important, Rob. And you and I have talked about that yes, it could probably be faster, and the misinformation folks are going to do that. But if we educate our community, they know we're the trusted source. When they do see something from us, they'll be able to balance that against any misinformation they may have gotten in the first 2 seconds. Right? We saw that here locally with the disasters we've had. Everybody gets on and starts making assumptions immediately, and quite honestly, our crews haven't even arrived on scene yet. Yeah, and so I think, over time we'll speed that up, but we do want to get the right information out at the right time to the right people. That's important. And Nick, I'm really glad.
Mark, just one more point. The challenge, and I think this is the challenge the fire service faces, is social media studies all show, again, the public believes the first thing they read.
Yeah.
So we also always need to recognize that, and we have to figure out how to challenge that.
Yep. Yep. And Henry, to really answer your question, Nick did answer it. The imagery is what we're seeing right now. We're tracking this in the Daily Dispatch. We publish stories every day across the country, from across the country, I should say. We're not publishing for the agencies. And that imagery is where we're starting to see a lot of AI enhance the actual incident itself. And a lot of that has to do with copyright laws, with AP and others, but it is very dangerous right now. And I'm glad you said that, Nick, because that's the biggest AI thing I'm seeing, is that these images are coming out not representative at all about what's going on. And it immediately gets the public all spun up, thinking it's broader than what it is. So I appreciate that. And then Rob, another question from Henry, and I know you and I talked about it. I had the same question. How is it different than PulsePoint? We know Chief Price built an incredible system with PulsePoint, really driven at community CPR events. That's really what Chief Price built that initially for. It's still a great product for that. And so how is that different, knowing PulsePoint is a partner of the Western as well, but you are in two different spaces. Maybe talk about that for clarity.
Yeah, I think, at a small portion of Aware, it's very similar. We both display calls for service. We both display incidents happening in real time at an agency level. I think that the main difference is, PulsePoint, as I understand, takes information from the CADs and displays it. We take information from the CADs, and then we also have the full engagement of the agencies putting out additional information above and beyond. I also just think the focus and the app-based application, this is a brand new app built on the latest technologies, and performant, as Nick mentioned, a 3D, following a 3D tanker as it goes on mission. Those kinds of tools are above and beyond what PulsePoint currently delivers. But I agree, a great life-saving application.
Yeah. So Henry, my recommendation is, as a recently retired fire chief, don't get rid of PulsePoint. It is a great community CPR notification tool that's pretty unique. It was organically used as a firefighter tool to know when calls are coming in. That's simply because CAD systems were so slow at the time. So we won't get on that tangent. That's a whole nother webinar. So my recommendation is maintain PulsePoint and reach out to Intterra, because they are doing two different things, two different focuses. There is some commonality, but they still have their own distinct space in our industry. So hopefully that answered the question. With that, Chief Schuler, I'm just going to give final thoughts to you. We're coming up on the top of the hour. Anything you learned through this process, for the folks that are watching this today and going to watch it tomorrow through our recorded webinars and hopefully a podcast we're going to turn this into, that they're going to listen to it. Final thoughts on what you would want people to know listening to this or watching this about the work you're doing, your partnership with Intterra, and what you see as the future. I'll just give you the floor.
Well, first, Mark, thank you for having us. For myself, with 28 years in the fire service, my goal when we started this wasn't to compete with anybody else. It wasn't to say that other platforms are not useful. For us, it was to have a singular authoritative voice that represented all agencies and provided a means for us to communicate from the fire service directly to the public, to enhance transparency, to promote efficiency, and that's what we're doing. And we're excited about the launch in August, and just really appreciate your time and having us. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks to both of you. It'd be great to do this again after August, quite honestly. We'll maybe do it again in December, January, give you guys some time to settle in. But I think that's a great follow-up on how did that implementation go, and let's learn a little bit more about it. So really appreciate having you both on. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Thank you.
No.